No one could say exactly when George Talbot and Carla Grant first plotted to kill Carla's husband, Robert. Robert was nearly twice Carla's age when he married her, and that was 10 years before George entered her world. For 9 of those years, Carla had grown tired of her marriage, though Robert never seemed to notice it. He spent his time buried in books and admiring the valuable gold collection he kept at home. George and Carla had been secret lovers for 8 months, but now their situation was becoming dangerous. People in town were starting to whisper, and it wouldn't be long before Robert discovered the truth. Carla knew Robert would never agree to a divorce, and neither she nor George had money of their own. But Robert's gold was worth a fortune, enough to give them both a comfortable life together if they could somehow get their hands on it. Ironically, it was a police inspector who unknowingly gave them the perfect plan. One evening, the inspector paid an unexpected visit to the Grant household. George happened to be there having a drink, something he did regularly without raising suspicion. The inspector explained that there had been several robberies in the area recently, and the thief was still at large. The police knew who he was, but they hadn't caught him yet. More worryingly, this criminal carried a gun and was suspected of murder. The inspector looked directly at Robert and warned him that the house was isolated, with only George's place nearby, and that Robert's gold collection made him an obvious target. He strongly advised Robert to put the gold in a bank until the thief was caught. Robert stubbornly refused, insisting he preferred to keep his treasures at home. The inspector could barely hide his frustration as he left, reminding Robert that he had been warned. After the inspector departed, George casually mentioned that the thief wouldn't bother visiting his house since he owned nothing worth stealing. But if someone did break in, George said confidently, they would regret it because he kept a gun and wouldn't hesitate to use it. George was tall, handsome, and strong, and Carla looked at him with obvious admiration. She told him she felt sorry for any thief foolish enough to try scaring him. The pieces of their dark plan were falling into place. 3 nights later, Carla lay wide awake in bed beside her sleeping husband. It was 6 minutes before 3 in the morning. Her heart raced with nervous excitement. In just 10 minutes, George would break into the house. Those minutes crawled by unbearably slowly. Then she heard it, the sharp crack of breaking glass, followed by the sound of a window being forced open. Robert continued sleeping peacefully beside her. Carla waited until she heard the unmistakable sound of someone climbing through the window downstairs. Then she reached over and shook her husband urgently. Robert woke groggily as Carla told him in a frightened whisper that someone was in the house. At first, he tried to dismiss her worry, but then he heard the noise himself. He sat up, fully alert now, pulled on his worn white dressing gown, and headed downstairs to investigate. Carla remained in the darkness, her mind racing. The seconds felt like hours, though barely half a minute passed. Then a sliver of light appeared under the bedroom door. She heard Robert cry out suddenly, followed immediately by a gunshot that echoed through the house. Something heavy crashed to the floor. A door slammed, and she heard rapid footsteps running away outside. Carla forced herself to wait. George needed time to escape before she called the police. When enough time had passed, she switched on her bedside lamp and climbed out of bed. Now that it was over, she felt strangely calm and collected. She had rehearsed what she would tell the authorities. Her mind drifted to the future. How soon could she and George marry? Perhaps 6 months from now, they could honeymoon in Mexico. She had always dreamed of visiting Mexico. Lost in these pleasant thoughts, she barely noticed when the bedroom door opened. Then her blood turned to ice. Robert stood in the doorway, staring at her. For a long, terrible moment, Carla could only gape at him in horror, her stomach twisting with fear. He was pale, disheveled, and silent, but unmistakably alive. Her voice barely worked when she finally asked what had happened. Robert explained that the intruder had escaped and stolen some of his best gold pieces. He wished now that he had listened to the inspector's advice about the bank. But Carla had heard a gunshot. She asked frantically if he was hurt. Robert assured her he was fine, but then his expression grew somber. He had bad news. It was about George, apparently. Their brave neighbor had been watching the house and had followed the thief inside, trying to help them. Robert's voice dropped as he told Carla that George was lying at the bottom of the stairs. There was nothing anyone could do for him now. The words hit Carla like a physical blow. Her eyes rolled back, her legs gave way, and she collapsed forward. Robert caught her before she hit the floor and gently laid her on the bed. He went back downstairs, stepping carefully over George's motionless body at the bottom of the staircase. He moved calmly, stepping around the blood that stained the carpet. When he entered the room where he kept his gold collection, he finally allowed himself to feel something. Seeing his finest pieces gone made him want to cry. He closed that door and walked into his study. Before calling the police, he methodically cleaned the small gun he had hidden in his dressing gown pocket, then locked it securely inside his desk drawer. Robert had successfully eliminated the one problem that threatened his otherwise orderly life. As the inspector had wisely said, it was always sensible to be careful. Very careful indeed. And Robert had been exactly that.